Hi everyone, this is James from Titan Drones. Today we are going to be modifying the Phantom 4 Pro version 2 remote controller for use with our various systems. Alright, first step is to take your T6 Torx screwdriver and undo the 4 Torx screws on the back of the I/O plate cover. Now pry off the I/O plate cover. We prefer to use nylon tools for this step so you don't mar the plastic. Next, we're going to remove the 4 screws that are holding down the heatsink on the I/O board. This is done with your number 1 Phillips. Obviously, you'd be using a hand tool. Right. Gently peel back the tape holding the wires. Unplug the connector. Set that aside. Alright, now you're going to pry up on the retaining clip holding this gold connector on the right side of the board. You can carefully pull that out like so. Then you'll pry up on the black retaining clip on the header holding this flat cable. And you can gently pull the flat cable out. There's a connector on the bottom here that you want to pull out. And one more. 2 more, I'm sorry. And you should be left with this. Alright, now we're going to remove the bumpers. There's 2 on the bottom that are concealing 2 screws. And you're going to remove the 2 bumpers on the side. Now you're going to remove the 4 Phillips screws that hold the controller together. Now put those in a safe place. Alright, now that you're ready to separate it, we recommend taking one hand and holding the antenna. Take your other hand and you're going to grasp onto the bottom rail and then put some pressure in the middle at the parting line. Should come apart just that easy. Now be careful here because you will have a battery connection. And then also you want to push those cables through. Your battery connector is right there. You're just going to push in on the clip and pull it out. And then set that aside. Alright, now we're going to take off the main board heatsink by removing this screw, and then you should have some more around the perimeter. Alright, remember there's going to be some thermal paste under there, so gently rock it back and forth until it comes loose. Alright, now to make this a little bit easier to get to the antenna connections, we're going to unscrew this Phillips screw here and hinge this board up. And be careful with the wires there. Now you're going to pry up this connector here on the bottom. Just like that. Now you'll be able to hinge this board up. Now it also has some thermal paste on it. All right, now you're going to gently remove some of the silicone around the connector. You're going to jiggle it back and forth. It's going to loosen it up, and be very careful here. You do not want to have that connector come off the board. So just take your time. And there's another one right there. You're going to do the same thing. So he's cutting away some silicone. Grab to where the cable meets the connector, wiggle back and forth to loosen it, and then pry up. Just like that. All right, now you're going to take your number 0 Phillips and you're going to remove the screws that are holding in the scroll wheels. There's one on each side. Just pull those out and set them aside. Now that's your antenna cable that runs all the way down. So you're going to fish that out. And the same on the other side. Now again, the method we're teaching you is how to keep everything intact. If you decide you want to cut it, that's up to you. All right, now to remove the factory antennas, you're going to take your needle nose pliers, and we like to squeeze on the barb here as you're pulling the antenna out. So we'll show you how that's done. All right. And this is how it looks from the other side. Just like that. All right, now take your mod cables, remove the lock washer, and remove the nut. Take your QMA adapters and encapsulate the bracket. The cable. They're made to fit around it, and you can just hand tighten the nut back on for now. We're going to remove that to add the bracket later. And you're going to do that on the other cable as well. And now we're going to feed it through. All right, now we're going to take your new cable assembly and route it through the factory antenna hole. The goal here is to try to route the cable the same way you took out the factory cable. The reason for that is you don't want to interfere with the mechanical joysticks when they move. All right, you see we ran this one kind of the same as factory. So just trace that black wire. Now push your other antenna cable assembly in, and you're going to route this one just like we removed it, along the same path. That's what we recommend anyway. All right, you'll see the other one we also ran just like factory. Now it's time to plug them in. If you're familiar with the Mavic or Spark or Mavic Air, it's the same connectors. There you go. Now you're going to want to secure this left screw that's used to hold down the main board. Leave that right screw until you put back the heatsink. All right, remember to reconnect this flat cable on the bottom before you put your heatsink back on. Should hear an audible snap. All right, there's two other screws that secure the heatsink. You're going to reattach them. All right, now you're going to replace your two scroll wheel assemblies. You should have a long screw and a short screw. The longer one's going to go on the one on the right. All right, now time for the left one. There you go. Just test and make sure they still scroll and depress. All right, now we're going to reassemble the clamshell. First, connect your battery. All right, now you want to run the cables through the same way you took them out. So that gold connector, this small connector all came through that center hole. Then your main flat cable came through that bottom, just like that. All right, now we're going to reinstall the I/O board. Want to make all your connections again. Push that in and press down on the retaining clip. Now reinstall your main flat cable. If you have anything DJI, you're used to these. Same thing, press it in, the header, and then push down the retaining clip. All right, now it's time to secure it. Okay, now we're going to reinstall the heatsink on the I/O board. And the first step in doing that is installing the 2-pin connector. Now you're going to reinstall the screws that secure the heatsink. We're going to reinstall the I/O plate cover. And reinstall the 4 screws.
Are you going to delete it?
You can reinstall the 4 screws that hold the clamshell together. Reinstall the rubber bumpers that cover the screws. The 2 bottom ones will have enough adhesive that they'll stick. And we provide you with some pre-cut tape bumpers that you can use for the long bumpers. All right, this remote happened to be the Phantom 4 Pro Plus with the built-in screen. So your bracket is going to be a 2-point bracket, kind of similar to the Mavic or Mavic Air or Spark. Remove the 2 nuts that you had earlier. Put the bracket over the QMA plugs that are sticking out. And then you just attach the nuts to hold the bracket down. And then just hand tighten them, don't go crazy. All right, when you're finished, that's what it looks like. And once again, this is James with Titan Drones, and this is the Phantom 4 Pro version 2, the Plus edition with the built-in screen.